Hi there, and welcome to the Multiply You podcast, where we showcase top experts in their space and reveal all the secrets you need to know to multiply you.
Hey everybody, happy Tuesday. Austin Clark here, host of the Multiply You podcast. Excited to be able to spend some time with a really neat and extremely qualified guest today that I think everyone will want to lean in just a little bit. Especially as we'll record this. It's December 22nd today. It'll drop in a couple of weeks, but it'll drop kind of right around when people are thinking about New Year's resolutions. And I know that normally, and I'm sure Sid has probably got some statistics on this too, but I would imagine that the top three has to do with health, wellness, and a lot of those things. And I think, unfortunately, just as quickly as a lot of us thought about some of those goals or some of those New Year's resolutions, we're just 2 or 3 weeks later not doing the things that we said that we would do, and we're kind of back into old habits. And habits are certainly going to be things that Sid and I discuss here. And so I'll introduce him here in just a moment. This episode, as they all are, it's brought to you by Moxie. We have been very fortunate to be growing like crazy the last 3 to 5 years. And that's no exception, not just in my location here in Phoenix, but all throughout the country. Part of how we've been able to grow is, one, we're taking care of people as best we can. And on top of that, we've just found a real neat niche to where we've been introduced to many, many people that own pest control companies that are looking to exit for one reason or another. And I think the pandemic and post-pandemic may have expedited some of that for some people. And so if there's anyone that is listening that knows somebody, you may be listening yourself and own a pest control company here in the Phoenix market, reach out to me. I'd love to be able to have a super low pressure discussion about this or really anything that you'd like. Text me on my cell or call me. It's 480-254-9730. Sid Garza-Hillman, everybody. So kind to be able to have him carve out a few minutes of his day to speak to us to really things that for me, and I think for everybody, are probably really, really important as it relates to our overall happiness. Sid is the author of 3 published works, Approaching the Natural, a Health Manifesto, Raising Healthy Parents, Small Steps, Less Stress, and A Thriving Family in 6 Truths. Live by these truths and be happy. Don't, and you won't. And you probably didn't even need to write the rest of the book. You probably could have just put that on a book and put that there. And I love that title. He holds a BA in philosophy from UCLA, is a public speaker, podcaster, What Sid Thinks Podcast. Check it out, please. Certified nutritionist, running coach, and Oxygen Advantage breathing instructor. He is the Stanford In-N-Am Resorts Wellness Program Director and race director of the Mendocino Coast 50K Trail Ultramarathon. I'm getting tired just saying these things, let alone.
I'm sorry to put you through that.
No, I'm just saying, my goodness, I get winded walking to my car. Sid created a groundbreaking habit change system, which I really want to dive into, and coaches people all over the world via his 12-week online program, smallsteppers.com, and a 12-week private coaching intensive, smallstepintensive.com. His core strategy of awareness-based habit change helps people increase productivity and establish long-term habits in the healthy eating, fitness, creative pursuit, and organizational areas. Sid, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
No, really, really glad to have you on. So I'm going to be very selfish and talk about me for a moment.
Good.
Why? And I think that I might be just kind of like a normal New Year's resolutioner or so, but where does all of this stem from? Why do people set these New Year's resolutions and then 2 weeks later they're back doing whatever they're doing? And I think the answer might go to way before that and maybe some of our habits. But I mean, if health is so important, like we know this, all of us know this, all of us know that if we want to, for example, lose weight, then our caloric intake needs to be less than what we're burning off. And overall health and wellness is different for different people. Maybe I want to lose weight. Maybe someone wants to get stronger. Maybe someone else wants to either fit into those jeans or look a certain way or feel a certain way. And so I have so many questions for you, but why Well, where does you're a psychologist, or part of your background is that. What is the psychology behind a lot of this?
Well, I'm not a psychologist, but but of course, being in the world that I've been in for many years, it's certainly there's overflow there. I have a very simple answer to that, which is things like New Year's time is a time that we maybe during the year when we're so busy we don't do this, but New Year's when we're on break and all of a sudden it's a change of the year, and it brings us into an awareness state where we go, I think there's some things I want to change. There's some stuff that I'm not happy with. It's like the time of year where we go, I think I want to get healthier. And so we realize first and foremost that there are changes we want to make. So fine, good, and then this next step. This is why I have a job. They go, I want these changes to be as fast as possible. Okay, so I'm 45 years old, let's say, and I've been doing things for 44 years and 364 days, but I want to change this in 21 days. So then you've got this beautiful market of quick fixes and diets. And they say, listen, we know you want this so bad, and we got your solution. We've got 10 pounds in 21 days. It's flashy. It's awesome. We send you a bunch of stuff. You get all excited about it. Or you say, New Year's resolution, I'm going to eat, this diet. We're starting on January 1, and it's a big plan, and we're so excited. And that excitement, we've got the dopamine hit and the hormonal thing, and we're all excited about it. Well, here's the only hitch. We lack the tools to actually get that done. We are all about the excitement. And as soon as that excitement wanes, which it will, then we go on to the next thing. And that's why the diet market is billions of dollars, is because it hits that hormonal pleasure center. It says, as soon as you get bored with this thing, I got another thing down the pike. So as a small stepper, I completely turned that over on its head and said, listen, get clear on your goals. That's amazing. That's awesome. But nobody I've ever worked with wants to lose 10 pounds in 21 days. They want to actually be somebody at a healthy weight. Well, okay, that's different, because the 10 pound, 21 day diet, it usually will work if you follow it, but you'll gain it back almost 100% of the time. And by the way, losing weight doesn't mean you're doing it in a healthy way. Gaining muscle doesn't mean you're doing it in a healthy way. So when I work with clients, and even in my online program, of course, because I'm involved every day in live Q&As and things like that, it's people, when they can spend 5 minutes getting really clear about their goals, would never do a diet, because they actually realize, oh, wait, that's not what I want. I actually want to be a healthy person. That means not following a diet. That means living day to day as a healthy person. Okay, well, now we've got to start thinking about things. We've got to start doing the real work of this. And that's a whole nother ballgame. That's not exciting, not sexy, like I always say, but it'll actually deliver the actual result that you want.
And so why, Sid, the marketing is amazing, especially around this time of year. People know they're being marketed to. It's not a trick, if you will. I think it's just people. It's not even exploiting. It's just giving people what they think that they want. But like you say, if they'll take 5 minutes to think about it, what they think they want isn't actually what they want. What are the first steps into people changing their psyche or changing the way that they think about it and implementing this into their daily lives? Because certainly you've heard it all. I don't have time for that. Yeah. I don't have the, you've heard it all. And so where do they even begin?
Well, the mantra I've been using, and I'm not a hippie, but I'll still use the word mantra. But anyways, for lack of a better word, for the last few years, I've been using the mantra, mind first, body second. And what that means is that for the first period of time in my 12-week intensive, it would be literally, I'm not even kidding, 5 to 6 weeks before I will talk about food. Everyone wants to come talk about diet. I'll go, we'll talk about that later. What? We'll talk about that later. Prepare your brain to make changes, because if you don't prepare your brain, you're going to go too much, too soon, and burn out like you've done 1,000 times before you even walked in my figurative door. That's what I get. Clients who have done yo-yo dieting for years, who have done fitness plans for years, who've started this exciting thing, and then I don't know what happened. So mind first, body second. What that means is spend some time thinking. Don't start January 1st on a diet. Start January 1st thinking about things. What do you really want? What are your ideals? How do you actually see yourself? We're so used to saying, I have no control. I get this all the time. I have no control around food. I can turn that on its head within weeks. I can show them that they actually do have control. It's not that hard to do, actually, if they take the time. But I ask them to actually quantify, like actually in writing, I do. Say, who are you really? What are you, if you were living your ideal life, what would it actually look like? I've had obese clients write, I'm at a healthy weight. And I go, okay, well, that's interesting, because you've defined yourself as I have no control, I'm obese, but yet when you write your ideals, you write, I'm at a healthy weight. That's when I step in and say, I'm not trying to change you into a new person. I'm trying to bring the real person that you are out into the world. So we've got it. You've been living in conflict with who you are for years. So it's going to take some time. But let's start bringing that person out. Let's start getting you living on life on your terms. But you can't do that until you know who you are and what you stand for. That's a thinking person's game. Then it becomes about action to get there, but you got to quantify first.
What are the most common objections that you hear of why they can't do what you're suggesting for them to do or your clients to do?
Because they want it so fast, and because I am not sexy in terms of my program. I mean, I'm a sexy person, obviously.
Obviously.
Obviously. But it's not a sexy. I'm not selling flash. I mean, that's why I'm not flying first class. Like gurus do, because I am selling an actual solution, a real solution, not something that appeals to their pleasure center and their excitement. This is adult work. This is hard work. It's amazing work, and it's earned. What I always say is, like, are you married?
I am.
Okay. So how long have you been married?
Oh boy, you're going to put me on the spot. I hope my wife doesn't listen to this. We have been married for, in case I get it wrong, we've been married for 14 years.
Okay. I've been married 26 years. So let me tell you, let me ask you something. Did the day after you got married, did you say, okay, well, we're married now. We don't have to, we're good. We can just phone it in from here on out.
That did not happen.
Of course not. You have to engage. To be in a successful relationship takes attention. It takes work. Had you have kids? I have 3 kids. I can't be a good parent when I just go, I got it. No, I have to pay attention. I have to take care of myself so that my stress is low enough. That's my second book, Raising Healthy Parents. Teaching parents, you got to take care of yourself first. You have to be selfish in this so that when you are around your kids, you're in a lower stress state. You're not irritable. You're not in a bad mood. You're not underslept. You feel good. Then you can be a happier person around your kids. This is hard work to do these things. But somehow in the diet realm, and many really in the healthy living arena realm, we are being marketed a quick fix solution that is simply not a solution at all. And that's why the hesitancy I get from people is it's not happening fast enough. And I go, well, what is it? Because if it's 10 pounds in 21 days, okay, but you told me that wasn't what you really, really wanted. And so I always have to steer them back. What do you really want? Well, do you want to gain it back? No. I want to be healthy. I go, okay. Again, we'll have this conversation 15,000 times. It's what the work I do. It's fun. I make it funny and fun. I go, here we go again. You're talking about a quick fix again. That's not what you want. You said that's not what you want. That's what you told me. So let's get back to business. And they get really used to, by managing their stress through my approach, very used to this way of living, and it becomes easier, but it doesn't become easy. It becomes easier. They get used to staying engaged, used to being aware, used to managing their stress so they can hang on long enough to create actual habits in their lives. But it is not flashy. I mean, I do not have before and after photos, because my before and after photos would be a facial expression of stress versus, a grin of happiness. And it wouldn't be this huge obese person and this rail thin person next to them. And everyone goes, my God, what did they do? I go, I don't know if they're happy or healthy. So it doesn't matter what they did. What do you want to do?
No, I love that. Thank you very much. Before we kind of went live, we talked a little bit about just the hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't know if it's approaching billions, but that organizations, CEOs, corporations are putting into these kinds of, I hate to say program for lack of better words, but that they understand very much so the benefits, and many, many, many others that you've not mentioned, but of having lower stress, of being more productive. How have you seen and we in our kind of small world here at Moxie, we've made different attempts. I think most of them have been good and landed well. And I've seen a lot of appreciation from employees for those efforts. But again, it's something usually we'll do every other year around this time of year. We'll talk about it for 3 to 4 months, which I think is a lot longer than, the 12-week diet sort of thing. And then it's back, it's back to business. What are some of those programs that you've seen implemented and done really, really well? What do they look like?
Well, I got to be honest. I haven't seen many that worked really, really well. Look, my program is 12 weeks, but you're not done at 12 weeks. You've learned the system, then you apply it forever. So I don't make promises of lose weight. What I see in the corporate world, now, first of all, I'll say, like we talked about before we went on air, which is this is primary, in my opinion, should be primary importance. I mean, the health and happiness of your employees should be primary importance. I worked with a client recently who lived in Sweden. And so we were working for doing the 12-week thing, and she's a doctor. And there are mandated breaks during the day. Like, you have to take time off. You have to take, however many weeks off from work. You have to do these things. And what they found is that the productivity over the overall organization goes way up the more time people have off. The balance is better. We are, in America especially, very much don't take time off, keep hitting it, keep pushing it. And overall, we're less efficient. So the weird thing is that the more you can balance that out by sometimes taking time off, taking care of yourself, actually you get more done in a shorter amount of time at work. There was I think his name's Stephen Covey, a management guy who wrote a bunch of books, and he called it like sharpen the axe. You can go out and cut wood, and if you never stop, you're going to cut, but that axe is going to get dull, and you're going to keep cutting, but you're not going to barely cut anything. If you stop every now and then and sharpen your axe, that time away will be more than made up by when you come back with a sharpened axe. You're more efficient at your job. And so likewise in the corporate world, we really need a mindset change, which is we're pushing our employees really, really hard. We're expecting all these things, and we're not giving them opportunities of self-care and real lessons of self-care. And bringing in some guy to do, or some woman to do aerobics one day a week, or giving people gym passes doesn't do anything, because they still have to be people who have to learn how to manage their stress to go to that gym, even if I'm a small stepper. So even they don't even need to go to a gym, learning how to just move around their house in the beginning. I mean, if you're obese and you don't feel well, you're not going to get into a car and drive 20 minutes to a gym, change, work out for an hour and a half, come home, change again. I mean, it's crazy. But you can, walk around your home for literally 3 minutes just to begin the habit of moving your body, and then over time build that. But then by the time you've built that into a 30-minute walk or a run, the habit's in place. You've become somebody, but nobody takes that time. Even in the corporate realm, they send some person in, everyone gets all excited, and they all do this big, I'm going to have big plans of fitness. I'm going to go every day. And once I get this new job, I'm going to go to the gym every morning at 5. Well, we all know how that plays out. People are not productive. They aren't getting it done because they take on too much too soon, and they don't have guidance in the real important work, in my opinion, which is how to make this last a long time. That's a whole nother ballgame.
So let me ask you this. I mean, the problems or challenges that you're addressing head on and doing an incredible job of that. How has that changed or been exposed with the pandemic? Have you seen different data or different information? The principles of healthy living, exercise, diet, healthy eating. I don't think that anything's changed there, but our world has changed in the last 2 years as it relates to your line of work and your program and what you do. Has that been a positive thing? Has that been a negative thing for people? Are more people exercising now because they're at home and maybe have more time? Or less people? What does the last 2 years of data look like?
I haven't seen data on it. I have only my experience as a coach and with the clients I've coached. I do think that there was some pressure in COVID for those of us who didn't have jobs for a while. Like I run a wellness center and at a resort, and the resort shut down for a few months. I mean, I still had a job, but I wasn't doing anything, I practice what I preach. And so I was actually very productive during that time. But I think that people often with that increased time felt, well, they did the same thing. I was just talking to somebody yesterday, and they said, when we shut down for COVID, I thought, this is what I'm going to do. And they had big plans.
I've been waiting for this. Now I have time. I don't have this commute to work.
And got nothing done. And that's because they don't have the training of execution, of implementation. And that's where I step in. But so it was like pressure. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to get in shape, and I'm going to clean my house, and and again, basically the same quick fix mentality is, I'm excited about this. This is what the changes I want, but I lack the skills to do less in the short term so that I can do more in the long term. And that is such a hard thing to wrap our heads around. We want to get it done. We want to walk into a house that's not cluttered. So we go, this weekend, I'm going to spend 17 hours. Well, when boots hit the ground, it's a nightmare, right? And so you go, I'm not doing it. And so you turn on Netflix and you're distracted, because we have more distraction than ever at our fingertips. And so what a great time to be distracted, because we don't have to face anything, because we go on social media and we go on, the news, and we go on, so we can keep ourselves blind. But the problem is it's there in us. It's hanging over our shoulders. And that stress of what we're not doing in our lives often is expressed in unhealthy eating habits, for instance, of lack of exercise, or sometimes too much exercise. It's that feeling of unfulfillment is expressed in the behaviors of eating, for instance. So people come to me and want to talk about food. I go, this isn't about food at all. This is about, we've got to reconcile what's going on in you that wants to come out. And then you won't need junk food as much, because you'll be more fulfilled and happier as a person. Let's get that done. That's the real work here. Diet will only shove off that pain for, however many weeks the diet is. It's going to come back and bite you in the ass.
And so speaking then, Sid, about food or diet, how does healthy eating fit into a person's overall? It's been said that abs are made in the kitchen, but so are tacos. And so, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where does healthy eating fit into a person's life, and how does that work?
Well, I'm a nutritionist, and so I definitely have a philosophy and approach to healthy eating. However, like I said, I won't have that discussion about food for weeks because it's not about food. However, when somebody is ready in their minds to realize what they want, really clear on their goals, then when they make moves to eat healthier, it's not because of restriction. If somebody goes right to a diet, it only lasts a certain time because all they're going to be thinking about is, oh, I wish I could have that. I wish I can't have that. I can't rules as if I can't have that. That's not, I've literally heard the word in the world now, compliant.
I can't.
That's not compliant. I go, what are we in Star Trek? That's not compliant. Yeah. I'm like, what is happening here?
We're not auditing your taxes here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not,
financial books.
That food isn't compliant. Well, that's somebody who hasn't taken the time, right? So if you can, again, mind first, body second. Get your head around a choice that you're going to make to eat healthier so that you feel better and happier. And you can afford to have treats also and eat less than healthy. I don't eat 100% healthy. But to do that takes time, like I said, but get your mind first. Now, once you're in a good place where you can then say, okay, these are the changes I want to make, healthy eating's massive. I think it's most of our health is our diet, like 90%. Very little of it is exercise. There's no wild animal in the world that exercises. We are the ones that run on a treadmill for 30 minutes. Every wild animal moves, but we're the only ones that do 30 minutes on a treadmill and then we sit in front of a laptop for 8 hours. So our exercise idea that I can eat whatever I want as long as I exercise is completely flawed scientifically. It is not a reality. If you feed yourself well and you move just generally throughout the day and you're active, you're fine. You don't need this massive amount of exercise. In fact, a lot of clients, I'm lowering exercise because they simply don't have the nutritional support to pull off what they're doing. They're causing more stress on their bodies by exercising too much with lack of nutritional support. I'm an ultra runner, so I'm now in training for a race that's in April. It's my own race, but I always run it the day before. It's a 31-mile trail run. So I'm now exercising more. But because of that, I don't say, well, now I can just eat whatever I want. I go, okay, I got to be a little more careful. Sometimes a lot more careful in the food realm because I'm putting more stress on my body. That's a scientifically supported way to approach stress. But yeah, it's mostly about food, but not only about food. And I really want people to make sure that I find as I'm speaking around the country pre-COVID, of course, but people thinking way too much about food, measuring and counting and weighing and putting their Fitbit diets in there and getting all this data is like, oh my God, it's a nightmare. So a lot of times I'm trying to steer people into multiple areas, of attention. Like we are not made up of just diet. We have families and we have jobs and we have friends and we do things and we travel, and we create. Put things in different areas, and food is one of those areas that makes us happy.
Talk to me about caffeine, Sid. Where does caffeine fit in or not? I mean, energy drinks are like everywhere. They're getting cheaper every day. I mean, sometimes I'm at the gas station and people are just, walking out with bags of them to kind of get them through the day. I mean, caffeine, what's the deal? What about it?
Yeah, I don't think it's healthy for you. I will tell you that I drink coffee, and I will tell you this. I roast my own beans, man. So I've been doing that for 20 years. I love coffee, but I understand that, like I said, I don't eat 100% healthy. And everyone goes, antioxidants in coffee. I'm like, please, what I eat has the antioxidants. I don't need to go to coffee for antioxidants. Yeah. But so it's something to be limited. Now, when you look at energy drinks, there's a lot of times there's other crap in there. And I mean, like not good for you. It's best limited. I mean, Coca-Cola has caffeine in it. It's obviously literal junk food. I look at those things. If somebody's eating or consuming an inordinate amount of caffeine, I look at say, well, what's the underlying issue there? Are they not sleeping well? If they're not sleeping well, they're probably not eating that well. The stress of their lives is probably too high. So to me, it always comes back to stress management. I manage my stress. If I feel like having more than like 1 cup of coffee per day, I'm always like, okay, what's going on?
What's going on? What's happening?
What's happening here? Okay, and there's been times, like 7 years ago, I was like exhausted and I went on some training run and ruptured my Achilles tendon. I had no business running that day. I was fatigued. And afterwards I thought, why am I not sleeping well? I don't even drink much coffee. And then I added it up and I was drinking like 5 cups a day. Wasn't even aware of it. I wasn't even aware of it. I was just in this tired state. So I kept refilling my cup during the day. So I retooled, stepped back, renegotiated, get back into my life a little bit, brought my caffeine down, my sleep got better, got checked in with my diet again, little kind of tweaks like that. And that's what I'm training people to do. This is before my small steps approach got really inked. And this was one of the inspirations for me to say, this is how can I avoid this for clients? How can I teach clients to have a baseline state of engagement and awareness so that it never gets that bad. I mean, like I said, I should have never run that day. I was cold and exhausted, but it was on my training plan. So therefore I have to run. And then I ruptured my Achilles tendon and couldn't run for 6 weeks. So it was like disconnect from my life. That was a disconnected state. I was not connected to know what was happening in my life and what would have been a better move, which was to take a day off, for crying out loud. But I couldn't do it because it said so on a piece of paper. And that's when I really had to eat crow, like come back and go, this is insane. This is not who I am. That's why I said, this is not who I am. I've been doing that, but it's not who I am. And so I just retooled and then re-engaged.
So you definitely have a creative approach to your program, the Steppers program, the Small Step program. You also have a little bit of an artistic background. How has your creativity and your artistic background tied into you making your health program and the Stepper program fun, creative? How do those things interrelate with one another?
That's a great question. I two ways. So first way is overtly. I am a huge fan of creative pursuits. And as adults, we often put those things on the background. I used to paint, but I don't got time. I've got kids now. So the Small Steppers thing comes in and says, you can 1 minute a day of drawing is a start. That's a way to get that back into your life. I think it's supremely important to use our brains that way. Now, given my background of, I was a professional musician. I toured, the US and Canada and Europe and put out records. I was an indie rock musician and later went into acting. So I was a full-time actor. So there's a certain comfort that I have in terms of the way I communicate. And I appreciate humor. I don't know if people think I'm funny, but I try to be, at least to try to lighten this very heavy work up. I do believe this is hard work. Like I said, very hard work. But in that context, I'm not trying to convince people otherwise, but I'm trying to make it fun too. So when people hear the chatter in their own minds of this and that, I kind of bring that out and go, that's nuts. And then I always share my own, because I have my own same struggles as everybody else. And so there's a give and take as a coach of, listen, 2 nights ago, I had to tell my wife, please take these jelly beans away from me because I don't have control over them. And that happens probably once a week. I'm like, can you please just remove that? My kids are like, we'll take it, because they know, they see the look on my face. I'm like, get those away from me.
Yeah.
So we're dealing with very difficult things in the world. I mean, jelly beans obviously aren't natural. They're engineered to be addictive. And so to get mad at ourselves that we can't handle ourselves around jelly beans is a little unfair to us. And so we can engage with help. My daughter literally last month, she kind of moved them away. I go, what are you doing? She goes, I think you didn't want them anymore. I go, you're super correct about that. And it was like, I was like, well, thank you so much. Because she could see my hand kept going in, right? Because I've been doing this longer than anybody because I invented my own approach and I still use it. That's what that is not a failure. That's a part of my approach, which is engage help, recognize the challenges, and then not be mad at yourselves, but just say, listen, I got to get this done. Ask for help, these kinds of things. That's part of that training.
So has health and fitness always been a part of who you are? Or, what has kind of made this a career and a passion for you? Were you not healthy at one point and you said, hey, something's got to change. I'm going to get diabetes, or I'm very, very over. Was there a turning point for you, or has it just always been kind of who you are? And
no, there was definitely a turning point. I had graduated from college and I was, in the music. I was, pursuing music, and at that point playing solo and everything, but a lifelong asthmatic, inhalers, the whole thing, just prescription drugs my whole life. And I wasn't interested in nutrition, but somebody gave me a book. And I was like, first nutrition book I ever read, called Fit for Life. And I was like, well, whatever. I'm playing gigs and I'm working some easy job in audiovisual with a bunch of other artists and actors. We had a bunch of time on our hands on the public dime, right? So I'm reading this book, and it made a correlation between a dietary change and asthma. And I thought, that's ridiculous. Asthma has nothing to do with food. But I gave it a try. My asthma went away within a month, and I've never had it back. And so even though for the next over 10 years, I was, music and then acting, and that's all I did for, I ended up quitting my job and becoming a full-time actor. So I had even more time on my hands, and I began reading and reading and reading. And years later, 14 years later, I went back to school, became a nutritionist, and then started working with clients. But again, so funny, as a nutritionist, my training was what nutritionists do. But what I found is that nobody was sticking with my recommendations past about a month. And that's when I thought, I'm handing them a diet. This is a diet. So I took another step back and said, I don't even want to do this anymore, because they're paying me and they're not getting changed. They lose weight in a month and then they gain it all back. So I'm essentially guilty of that same thing. So I backed off, came back to work, in my brain as with my philosophy training and that thinking. And that's when I started to formulate my small steps approach. And by the way, that was the inspiration of my first book called Approaching the Natural, a health manifesto, which is my philosophy of health in a book. One chapter is on food. The rest, everything else non-food, because I realized, oh my God, this isn't about food. This is about all us being in multiple areas of our lives. And if we don't pay attention to every other area because we only pay attention to food, we fail. And I fail as a practitioner. So that's when I backed out and really got the real work done that I do today, which is way more fulfilling.
So you've definitely talked to us a lot about what makes your approach different, and it is very different. It's not the super sexy before and after, and it's hard work and it's a lifetime thing. It's not a 12-week thing or a 6-week thing. What else is different about the small steps approach as it relates to those habits? I mean, other than working on people's psychology the first several weeks, how do you have them incorporate habits in all different aspects of their life to make them, to help them see that they can do it? Hey, you can do it. You weren't doing this before. You've been doing it for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and so on. How does the habit piece fit into there?
Yeah. So again, starting off with the actual writing of who I am. What is your ideal? I live in this place and I work in this job. I'm really shutting yourself off from any realities and saying, okay, I'm at a healthy weight. You might be obese. I'm at a healthy weight. I run marathons. You may have never run a day in your life. We get these ideals down. We may never hit them. Doesn't matter, because then we have a direction to work toward. Then and that takes time. And it's easier said than done. People go, oh, okay, I'll write that. But then all of a sudden they know that they're obese and they know that they don't run. And so it's hard. So they got to kind of take some time to shed that off. And by the way, I'm not a psychologist. However, there are times not anybody I'm working with right now, but within the last year, where in this process, some pretty heavy stuff comes up because they're realizing how much in conflict they've been living to how they actually see themselves. And a lot of things come up about relationships, in which case I say, immediately go see a psychologist, because I know that line. I don't advise on that. I'm not a marriage counselor. However, there's been clients in the work of them trying to make themselves feeling better, realizing that their marriage is one of their major sources of stress, in which case I say, go see a practitioner that is trained in that regard. I am a nutritionist, yes, and running coach and things, but anything outside of that, they're going to a psychologist or an MD if it's a physical thing. But I'm a habit change person. So once they get all that concretized and they're maybe working with a therapist, if that helps sort of get them to this place, then the implementation process occurs. And it is essentially, I call it a steps list. But in the intro, what you read, you mentioned my core strategy, which is awareness-based habit change. This is where it gets interesting, because I'm not the only one who talks about small steps. But if you look at most, if not everybody else who talks about it, they go micro steps, break everything down into 2-minute chunks. Well, for some of my clients, that 2 minutes is too big. And for other clients, it's too small. What I'm training people to do is create steps and manage the size of those steps so that for them in their heads, the steps are always small steps, no matter how big or small they are. It is a perception issue. It is looking at a piece of paper and saying, I'm doing this thing, and going, oh yeah, I could do that. It's no problem. I need them in that place. Because if they read a book that says 45 minutes of meditation and they try 45 minutes of meditation, some clients that would work for. That's their small step. I got the time. I'm retired. I have plenty of money. I have a nice house. 45 minutes works for me. For other people, I'm not joking here. I've started their meditation practice off 1 deep breath per day. 1 deep breath. Because even 5 minutes, they got kids running around, they got jobs, they got a whole busy commute, hour and a half each way commute. 45 minutes is, they could force themselves to make that done, but then that's going to be a diet that they'll burn out on. So I'm training people to do this on their own, which is to manage their step. As soon as their step becomes where they're dreading it, they lower it back down. Hardest thing to do in the modern world, right? No pain, no gain. We got to push forward. Well, that's why people fail. So they go, you know what? I went up to 10 minutes. That was a little too much. I'm going to bring that down to 7. Get used to that. Then I'll bring it back up to 8. And there's always a little negotiation. And usually over a few months, they're back maybe up to 45 minutes or whatever. So the awareness-based habit change step strategy is that they are aware at each step of the way of what they are doing in their lives to make sure that they don't do too little, but they also don't do too much. And that's really the system here that then they can apply to healthy eating. They can apply to how they exercise. They can apply to how they relate to I've had people who put steps on their list, 5 minutes talking to their spouse before the movie starts at night, because they get into this habit for 30 years of just getting home, eating in front of a TV. and their marriage is suffering. Not because I'm telling them it is, because they told me it is. And so I go 5 minutes, still watch the movie, but check in. And it changes people's lives. Even that little 5-minute chunk is a way that they kind of reignite a relationship. They've used it people to unclutter their homes. They've used it for increasing productivity at work. This idea of avoiding burnout and avoiding stagnation, knowing how to negotiate. So you're always in this really nice place of productivity and getting stuff done.
Well, thank you so much, Sid. And I think that I've heard a lot of reoccurring themes. I think that for me, my big takeaway, or the one that I've heard the most, is kind of self-evaluation. Take the time to sit back, take the time to think, take the time to creatively write something down if you haven't done that. Who are you? What's your ideal life? What does that look like? And then you can start to look, and if you're honest with yourself, you can see some of that conflict. I think that a lot of people deep down kind of know where they need to improve.
I think so too.
And you know what I mean? But we are conditioned to run so quickly and so fast. And, productivity is when we're just doing something scheduled next to next to next to next to next and back to back to back. And in reality, that's just not really the case. It's been so good to have you on, Sid. I really appreciate, again, your time. There's many people listening. A lot of people are really struggling with a lot of the things that we've talked about in different sorts of ways. And I think that a lot of people, the first step, in my opinion, that or barrier to entry is they just don't know where to start. For those that might be struggling with overwhelm and like, do I go buy a pair of running shoes first, or do I do as Sid has said and take some time to reflect, or do I go get a gym membership? Where would you suggest people start that are listening right now that just want to start?
It depends on what they want to start. Before you go out and buy a bunch of gym membership kinds of things or fancy equipment, you can go walking out your door or walk inside. I've started clients off with walking around their home for 5 minutes barefoot. You don't need equipment, really get your eye on the ball of what you want to do. Well, I want to start being a person who exercises. Okay. Find out a place that you can start that you can say, this is easy. I've started clients off 1 squat per day. 1 squat per day. Now everyone goes, well, that doesn't do anything. I go, we're not there yet. We're establishing a habit. Then we will grow it into a fitness plan that will reap you the benefits of fitness. But if you do something for 3 weeks and quit, you will get nothing out of that. So you start with 1 squat. Well, I could do that. That's easy. Okay, good. Every day, 1 squat. Boom. A few days later, they make it 2 squats. All of a sudden, within 4 to 6 weeks, they are somebody who exercises every day. Now, again, the blowback I get, but that doesn't, my heart rate is, we're not there yet. Because in 6 weeks, usually 1 squat's turned into potentially a 10-minute walk outside, or a 15-minute walk, or a jog, or then a gym membership. And all those, we have time to do this. This is not, now, by the way, I've had clients who have cancer. And for their small step, they change their diet overnight because all the motivation and the context of their lives, they are ready and it is not going to stress them out. They're like, give it to me. I got cancer. I'm ready to do this right now. That's their small step. So it's not the same size for everybody. I don't go just start with 1 apple, no matter who you are. I go, I want them to be able to figure out what's my motivation? What am I able to take on that isn't going to stress me out? For some people, it is a change overnight. They are ready to go. For others, it's literally a stalk of celery per day. I train them to figure out what that is that keeps them going.
Incredible. Sid, how can people reach you? Where can they find more information about you if people want to connect? How do they do that?
So the best place, they can find out my approach at smallsteppers.com. There's a 6-part free 6-part video series they can learn about. If they're interested, it leads you into the program. It's a 12-week program. It's freaking awesome. It's an online program. I do live Q&As. There's videos. Excellent. If some people are interested in more of a one-on-one, they can go to smallstepintensive.com and they can sign up for a free call with me, 15 minutes, if they want to find out literally what's happening over the 12 weeks. It's super fun, but it's an intensive. There's no doubt about it. Or they can go to SidGarza-Hillman.com. And I have a podcast and YouTube videos. I'm not on any social media. I quit that in 2018 as part of my own approach. But then, they can buy 6 Truths and find out things like that. But yeah, so those are the main places.
Amazing. Everybody check out Sid and some of the work that he's doing. It's totally incredible. Sid, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate you being here again. And all of you, thank you so much for patching in and sharing some of your day with us. Until another episode drops, create a great day.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Multiply You podcast. You'll see us again soon when you subscribe for future episodes.